Welcome back. So the Stellenbosch University urination saga continues to shock South Africans. Many are calling for harsh action to be taken against Theuns du Toit. They say the suspension alone is not enough. Let's discuss this further now with Meyer from University South Africa. Dr. Meyer, good morning and thank you very much for your time. Firstly, your reaction to this incident.
Well, the action is obviously deplorable, and from University South Africa, we will not stand by any behavior of this manner on any of our public higher education institutions. You said rightfully that the student has been suspended, and we call on the university to act with a disciplinary action without delay so that the student can face the severe consequences that they certainly deserve should they be found guilty in this matter.
You know, Doctor, this story honestly continues to dominate headlines, from the calls for expulsion that many are talking of now to the debate around the unmet transformational goals of the institution, to even the most recent of the laying of criminal charges. But interestingly enough, I have not heard nor read of any organization at this point that says, hang on, let's not be too quick to punish. This is a teachable moment, which to me would suggest that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that South Africans clearly no longer have patience for perpetrators of such acts.
Certainly, and I think the time has come when we take decisive action. Where people act with criminality and criminality of intent, we need to take decisive action, because clearly when we tolerate this, when we try an approach of reconciliation, which we've done now for almost 30 years, and people still step back into the ways of the past and think that it is acceptable, there needs to be severe consequences that these individuals are subjected to.
No, it's honestly a very different moment, because collectively, black and white, everybody is condemning this. And like you say, that people are saying there's no moment to teach anymore in such an instance. It's just taking everybody back and distracting them from the bigger project of reconciliation, but also a bigger project of rebuilding the country's economy after COVID, which we're still in a pandemic nevertheless. But then to the university itself, it's acted swiftly, yes, on this matter, even labeling it a racist incident like everybody else has. But it's become clear, Doctor, with every interview that we've had with these students, that there's clearly a problematic culture there, be it racism or a dehumanizing form of initiation of students that they do. So how much blame, if at all, should the university take for this incident?
Well, I think the university is taking positive steps in trying to address these issues, but we mustn't be naive. Obviously, there is institutional culture, and universities are a microcosm of the society that they serve, those local communities. So students obviously come from those local communities and reflect the underlying cultural context and beliefs of that specific microcosm of society. So as an institution, more needs to be done, certainly. I have, from my own experience, seen that Stellenbosch has taken very positive and decisive steps in trying to mitigate this, but certainly there's a long way to go to ensure that this behavior is completely rooted out. We cannot normalize and accept this as being par for the course. If students are speaking about issues that need to be addressed, we need to hear them, and we clearly need to hear what the underlying and systemic issues are that we need to address, so that the institution is assisted in remedying all of these issues. It's not just Stellenbosch universities. There's obviously situations that happen across our universities in South Africa, and the decisive message is that we act without any acceptance, and that this is no longer tolerated, and that individuals, be it staff or students, are dealt with in the harshest possible way, to know that this behavior will result in expulsion, civil and criminal action where these are appropriate.
Now, as a body representing universities, how do you honestly think the university should go about dealing with this culture, or racism culture, if you will? Because this is not the first incident. We've also heard now today that they're actually investigating another incident of racial slurs that were hurled at a black female student. But before that, we've had criticism of Stellenbosch's tone-deaf response when they had their Women's Day celebration and had basically a lot of white women in some pamphlet that they had circulated. So clearly there are issues there. How honestly can they deal with it so that we don't find ourselves, even as the media, reporting on such incidents at Stellenbosch University?
So the issue obviously for universities is that one should not take a defensive position to say that one is right or that one is doing the absolute best that you can. One needs to critically analyze. This is a moment now to critically evaluate and to listen to the stakeholders about what the systemic issues are that need to be addressed and those that need to be remedied. So if there is a perpetual behavior of these, often sometimes people will think that it is innocent, that it is overt in terms of the racism and harassment and prejudice that is displayed. But as an institution, really, this is a moment now where critical reflection needs to be engaged with, and where these systemic challenges are evident, that decisive action is taken. We cannot look for excuses, specifically in a moment like this, because it's not just about one incident. One incident is too much. And as an institution, although they're doing a lot, there certainly is space for all of us to give advice and to ensure that we act in a more decisive manner in remedying any behavior that is racially instigated, harassment, all of these issues. There's no space in the public higher education sector or in the higher education sector for any racist or racist behavior or behavior that is not enabling and transformative. We need to understand that almost 30 years into democracy, we've made great inroads in terms of transforming across the academy. But these systemic issues that remain and evidently remain needs a more decisive action. So no time for excuses anymore, time for action.
Okay. Now, some are suggesting as part of the decisive action, I don't know if it's productive or not, that perhaps what they did with not taking in new students, particularly first years, they were trying to resolve the issues with those that were at the university. And now some are even calling that perhaps you need to start over and have a year or two of not having lectures at the university. Would that even assist, though?
Well, I think that we need to understand that there are many students in the system, and that we need to look at the academic program whilst we fix problems. We can't be naive, bury our heads in the sand and think that if we close the institution for 2 years or take it fully online, that these issues are remarkably going to be addressed. It requires that all stakeholders work collaboratively in addressing this. But on the back end of building systems of addressing racism, there's also the issue around consequence management of people that enable specific behaviors where policy deficiencies exist, but certainly from all stakeholders, including the Department of Higher Education and Training, as Universities South Africa, as the universities as a collective, as communities and society. The time has now come where tolerance really has reached a boiling point, where we need to start making sure that people are accountable and that consequences are evident in terms of our actions.
No, Doctor, thank you very much for that insightful conversation. That's University South Africa's Director of Operations and Sector Support, Dr. Linda Meyer.